You think you know what a hyena is. The hunched posture, the laugh, the animal trailing lions, waiting for scraps. That image is wrong. And the gap between what you think the hyena is and what it actually is, that gap has a body count. Here is what the data shows. The spotted hyena kills up to 95% of its own food. It has a bite force nearly double that of a lion. It has been documented entering villages at night, pulling people from their homes, and consuming them. Not in legend, in peer-reviewed medical literature. And the reason most people don't know this is the same reason the hyena is so dangerous in the first place. Everything about how it looks tells you the wrong story. Start with the jaw, because the jaw is where everything else begins. The spotted hyena generates approximately 1,100 pounds per square inch of bite force. A German Shepherd, an animal bred specifically for powerful bite work, generates around 238 pounds per square inch. A lion, the predator the hyena is most compared to and most consistently portrayed as superior, generates between 650 and 1,000 pounds per square inch. The hyena's bite is stronger than the lion's. Not marginally, substantially. That jaw is not built for killing the way a big cat's is. It's built for something more specific, consuming what no other African land predator can touch. Bones, hooves, the calcium locked inside femur shafts that sits inaccessible to everything else. When a lion finishes a carcass, the hyena finishes the rest. When a hyena finishes, there is nothing left. Not bone fragments, not hide, nothing. The rest of the body is built to support that jaw. A spotted hyena weighs between 40 and 85 kilograms. The females are larger than the males, which is unusual among large carnivores and has direct consequences for how the animal hunts. Its hindquarters sit lower than its shoulders, giving it that distinctive sloped silhouette that looks broken, unbalanced, almost incomplete. That silhouette is a lie. The body is built for one of the most efficient pursuit strategies of any large predator on the continent. A spotted hyena can maintain a chase at 60 kilometers per hour across terrain that would exhaust most pursuit predators within minutes. It doesn't rely on a short explosive sprint the way a cheetah does. It sustains. It wears prey down over kilometers. And it does it in a group, with individuals coordinating to cut off escape angles while others maintain pressure from behind. The prey, by the time it falls, is not just tired, it has been herded, but here is the question that number raises. And it's the question nobody asks. If the hyena has the strongest bite of any large African carnivore, and if it hunts 95% of its own food, why does every documentary show it scavenging behind lions? The answer is not what you think. Studies conducted in the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania, one of the most intensively studied ecosystems on Earth, found that lions steal food from hyenas more frequently than hyenas steal from lions. Read that again. The crater holds up to 550 spotted hyenas and between 25 and 40 adult lions. The lions cannot possibly sustain themselves on what 550 hyenas leave behind. They take kills directly, approaching hyena hunts in progress, driving the hyenas off fresh prey, consuming what the hyenas caught. The narrative the documentary gave you is inverted. The hyena is not the thief. In the Ngorongoro, the lion is. Which raises a harder question. If hyenas are being robbed by lions, why don't they do something about it? Sometimes they do. A long-term dataset published by researchers at Michigan State University analyzed lion-hyena encounters across decades of field observation. What they found was that hyenas engage in coordinated mobbing behavior to drive lions away from kills, approaching as a tight group, vocalizing in coordinated sequences, rotating individuals in and out to sustain pressure. The researchers noted that this type of coordinated aggressive behavior between two apex predators had rarely been documented at this scale in any other species pair on Earth. This is not instinct in any simple sense. Mobbing requires individuals to assess the group, hold position under pressure, adjust behavior based on what others are doing, and sustain coordinated effort over time. It requires each animal to understand its role within a collective action. and execute it. That is a level of social cognition that researchers typically associate with primates. And the mobbing behavior is only the beginning of what hyenas can do. Kay Holkamp is a zoologist at Michigan State University. She has been studying spotted hyenas in Kenya's Masai Mara continuously since the late 1980s, over 30 years of data, covering 10 generations of animals. It is one of the longest-running studies of any wild mammal in scientific history. What her research keeps returning to is something that was not supposed to be there. In 2012, Holkamp and her colleague Sarah Benson Amram presented wild spotted hyenas with steel puzzle boxes baited with raw meat. To open the box, the animal had to slide a bolt latch. Most didn't manage it, but the ones that did shared something specific. They tried more approaches. They explored the box from more angles. They persisted longer without repeating the same failed attempt. The researchers called it diversity of exploratory behavior. It's the same trait that predicts problem-solving ability in humans and other primates. In 2016, a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences confirmed that brain size predicts problem-solving ability across mammalian carnivores. The spotted hyena ranked among the highest performers. But the most significant finding from Holkamp's decades of fieldwork is not about puzzle boxes. It's about what happens during a live encounter between a hyena clan and a lion group. Hyenas, the data suggests, count. When confronted by lions, they appear to assess whether the numbers present are sufficient to challenge before committing. Below a threshold, they withdraw. Above it, they press. The behavior is context-dependent, consistent, and critically accurate. They're not guessing. They're evaluating odds in real time, under pressure, with their survival contingent on getting it right. That is the cognitive profile of the animal in the village at night. But the social intelligence goes deeper than hunting coordination. Spotted hyenas live in clans of up to 130 individuals, structured by a strict matriarchal hierarchy where every female outranks every male. The hierarchy is linear, inherited, and stable across generations. A cub born to a high-ranking female automatically inherits her rank and defends it against animals larger and more experienced from the moment it can walk. Maintaining and navigating a hierarchy of 130 individuals requires a level of social tracking that researchers typically associate with primates. Who ranks where? Who is allied with whom? Who challenged whom 3 weeks ago? Who owes a debt? And who is owed one? Holkamp's research found that hyenas apply the same social reasoning to other species, correctly reading coalition strength in lion groups, calibrating their response to the specific configuration of animals in front of them, rather than reacting to a fixed rule. They're not running a behavioral program. They're reading the room. Frans de Waal, the primatologist who spent decades documenting political behavior in chimpanzees, described the social dynamics of spotted hyena clans as one of the closest parallels to primate politics he had encountered outside of primates. The alliances, the betrayals, the strategic use of grooming and submission to build social credit before calling it in. An animal with that level of social architecture, operating at night in your village, assessing you, is not doing something simple. That is the animal that has been entering human settlements across sub-Saharan Africa for generations. In 2003, in the Dawa district of Malawi, about 100 kilometers from the capital, Lilongwe, something happened that entered wildlife literature under the name the Malawi terror beast. A spotted hyena, believed to be infected with rabies, began attacking people across a populated area. By the time wildlife rangers tracked and shot it, it had killed at least 3 people and severely injured 16 others. 4,000 residents fled from 4 nearby villages to seek shelter at the district headquarters. The injuries documented in survivors were not what most people expect from a wildlife attack. Hands were chewed off. One woman had her lips and nose removed by the animal. Ears, fingers, toes, and feet were lost across multiple victims. Wildlife officials described a targeting pattern, not random biting, but consistent focus on the face and the extremities. This was not the only incident. In 1998 and 1999, In the El Kare and Bear regions of southeastern Ethiopia, 50 people were attacked by spotted hyenas in a single year. 35 of those 50 victims were children. In the nearby region of Fetis, in the same period, 3 people were killed and 3 others injured in separate incidents. In 2005 and 2006, 11 people were killed and more than 40 wounded in documented Ethiopian hyena attacks across multiple regions. A 2012 surgical mission to eastern Ethiopia reviewed 45 patients with facial deformities from rural communities. 4 of them were hyena attack survivors. The research team, publishing in a peer-reviewed surgical journal, identified the same pattern across all 4 cases. The initial attack targeted the face. When the jaws closed on bone, the bone was crushed. When they closed on soft tissue, the tissue was torn from the underlying structure. All 4 patients required reconstructive surgery. The targeting pattern, face first, then the extremities, then the abdomen, was consistent enough that the researchers concluded it was characteristic, identifiable by injury type alone without a witness. On August 6, 2024, Simon Chirwa, 31 years old, was walking back to his village near Kasungu National Park in Malawi when he was attacked by at least 2 spotted hyenas. He was disemboweled. A wildlife NGO that documented the case described wounds consistent with a coordinated 2 hyena attack, one animal anchoring a limb, the second targeting the abdomen. Simon Chirwa died at the scene. In February 2026 in Mzimba district, also Malawi, a 15-year-old girl named Dinah Sato was killed by hyenas while collecting firewood at Salora Hill with 2 companions. Brave Makamo and Kingston Yangalu, the 2 boys with her, were attacked first and sustained severe injuries. Community members who ran toward the sound arrived too late. The Mzimba police issued a warning to residents to avoid bushy and hilly areas where wild animals may be present. A local police department, not a national park, not a wildlife authority managing a reserve. A local police department issuing a warning about predatory attacks on children collecting firewood in a district where this is not considered rare enough to reach international news. Here is what all of these incidents share. They happened at night. They targeted people who were alone, separated, or in some way reduced in their ability to respond, sleeping, working, walking. They went for the face and the soft tissue of the midsection with a consistency that trauma surgeons in 3 countries have independently described in clinical literature as characteristic of the species. This is not a scavenger stumbling into conflict. It's a predator that assessed the situation and made a decision, and that decision is being made more frequently than it used to be. Research in northern Ethiopia found spotted hyenas present in human-dominated environments at concentrations 15 times higher than in natural habitat. The animals have adapted to human settlement the way urban coyotes adapted to North American cities, learning when people are least present, identifying accessible food sources, adjusting behavior across generations to reduce risk and increase access. An urban-adapted spotted hyena doesn't behave like a wild one. The wariness that keeps predators at a distance from human activity erodes through repeated neutral contact. What replaces it is familiarity. And familiarity in an animal with 1,100 pounds per square inch of bite force and the demonstrated cognitive capacity to evaluate numerical odds in real time is not a reassuring outcome. The city of Harar in eastern Ethiopia has maintained a documented relationship with spotted hyenas for over 500 years. Hyenas move through the streets at night. A man known locally as the Hyena Man feeds them by hand and from his mouth. Tourists film it. The footage circulates online as something warm, proof that wild and human can coexist without conflict. What it actually is a 5-century experiment in habituation, an animal that evolved to maintain distance from humans, learning, generation by generation, that it doesn't have to. Most of the time, the hyenas in Harar take the food and leave. Most of the time. The question researchers cannot fully answer, and that communities living alongside hyenas have been answering empirically for centuries, is what changes the calculation. What shifts a habituated animal from tolerance to predation? what the threshold is, and what lowers it. The attacks suggest the threshold is lower than most people assume, and the conditions that lower it further, reduced human presence, darkness, vulnerable individuals, food scarcity, are not exceptional. They describe ordinary life in much of the territory, where spotted hyenas have been expanding their range for decades. There is something specific that wildlife managers in high-conflict zones describe, and it doesn't appear in documentaries. A hyena that has grown up in proximity to humans doesn't approach the way a wild animal approaches, cautious, reading the situation, prepared to retreat. It approaches the way something approaches when it has already decided, when the calculation was made before it arrived. Experienced rangers in Ethiopia and Malawi describe the difference as obvious once you've seen both. The habituated animal moves differently, with a kind of purpose that the wild animal, still weighing its options, does not have. That purpose, in an animal with 1,100 pounds per square inch of jaw and 30 years of documented problem-solving research behind it, is the thing worth understanding. There are approximately 3 million spotted hyenas on the African continent. They're not endangered, they're not declining. They are the most numerous large carnivore in Africa, more common than lions, more widespread than leopards, better adapted to human-altered landscapes than almost anything else their size. Their population is stable, their range is expanding, their exposure to human settlement is increasing with each generation. Most people carry a picture of this animal assembled from a cartoon in a nature documentary made 50 years ago. An animal that laughs, that skulks, that exists below the lion in the hierarchy of the savannah. That picture is not just inaccurate. It's the thing that makes the hyena dangerous to anyone who relies on it. The strongest bite of any large African land carnivore. The cognitive architecture to plan, coordinate, and adjust in real time. The behavioral flexibility to learn human schedules, identify human vulnerability, and operate in the hours when the variables shift in their favor. 3 million animals, a population growing more familiar with humans with each generation that passes through our settlements without consequence. They've had 30 million years to develop their assessment of the world. You are working with information from the 1960s. If you want to understand another African predator that kills far more people than its reputation suggests, one that operates in the water before you ever know it's there, with a kill record that surpasses the saltwater crocodile, the next video on this channel is about the Nile crocodile. The numbers are worse than you expect. The reason is one most people have never considered.